Here are the youngest active head coaches and their ages at the time of Super Bowl 56 in years and days. You see Sean McVay at 36 years, 20 days. Zach Taylor just a little bit older, 38 years, 279 days. As the package mentioned, if McVay wins, he would surpass Mike Tomlin as the youngest coach to ever win a Super Bowl. The combined ages of the two coaches, 74 years, is the lowest by a head coaching duo in Super Bowl history. And with that in mind, let's go head-to-head, presented by the United States Marine Corps. And to do that, we welcome back senior NFL writer Pete Prisco. Pete, let's look at some of these head-to-head matchups for this game and get you to tell us who has the edge, in your opinion. And we'll start with the aforementioned head coaches, Sean McVay and Zach Taylor.
Well, I think Sean McVay has the edge because he's been there before. And, you know, we can all sit here and say it's just another game, it's just another game. But when you've been to a Super Bowl before, you know what it takes to prepare. You know what you have to do in terms of practicing before you get out to the site. You know what you have to do in terms of getting, tickets and lining up all that stuff and how you can delegate. And I think so for that reason, I think that's a big edge in this game for Sean McVay. But he's also ahead of him. I mean, he worked for him, so he's the guy that has the advantage. And sometimes that can be in a guy's head. Can Zach Taylor cast aside the fact that he used to work for this guy and just go out and coach? So for this game particularly, I think it's a big edge for Sean McVay.
Well, the difference in NFL experience between Joe Burrow and quarterback Matthew Stafford is large. I mean, Stafford drafted first overall in 2009, Burrow first overall in 2020, but that's pretty much where the comparisons ends. They both came into the postseason, 0 playoff wins. They each now have 3. One will have 4 later tonight. When you look at these quarterbacks head-to-head, Pete, who has the edge?
I'm going to go with Joe Burrow in this game. I just think that he is really on a little bit of a roll. And sometimes we've seen that over the course of history where a quarterback gets hot at the right time. Eli Manning did it to beat the Patriots twice. And I think when a quarterback gets on a little run, there's something inside his head that tells him, look, I have an advantage. I know I can go out there and make plays, and I think that's why I'm going to give him the edge. The pressure is all on Matt Stafford. The pressure is all on the Rams. We'll see early on. If Matt Stafford throws an early interception, this could be a real struggle for him in this game. So I think from a calm, cool standpoint, I'm going to go with the younger guy. I think Joe Burrow plays a lot cooler and calmer than Matt Stafford does.
Well, and as you saw in the graphic, too, he's used to being an underdog and used to winning. So if they get down in this game, he has the confidence to bring them back. Running back Cam Akers returned to the Rams in Week 18. He's led the team in rushing the past 2 games. You guys have talked about what a great story this is coming into the Super Bowl for Akers. All Joe Mixon did was finish 3rd in the NFL in rushing this season. Akers doesn't have the season stats, Pete, but he has the recency bias. So who do you give the edge to?
Oh, I think this is a big edge to Joe Mixon, the way it's currently constructed. If Cam Akers had played all season and had put up the numbers I thought he was going to put up this season, then I think we might be talking a little bit differently about this matchup. But right now it's Joe Mixon. And you look at Cam Akers' numbers in the postseason, he hasn't done a lot. I mean, his yards per carry is right around 3. That's not good enough. And I think Sony Michel will get some work. So this is a big edge. And right now, the way they're playing for Joe Mixon and the Cincinnati Bengals in their run game.
As Joe Mixon looks to join Pete Johnson and Nicky Woods as a Bengals player to win the Super Bowl, or the first Bengals player to win the Super Bowl there. In terms of the pass catchers, little needs to be said about Offensive Rookie of the Year Jamar Chase and Offensive Player of the Year Cooper Kupp. Both should be prominent in this game. Head-to-head, who do you like?
Well, when you look at these groups of receivers, they're both dynamic. They're both capable of being on the field a lot. They both play a lot. I mean, they use a lot of 3 receiver sets. Both teams do. They're 1 and 2 in the league. So get used to seeing a bunch of them on the field tonight. But if I had to pick my decided edge, it would go to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think across the board, they're better. You look at it. Look, Kupp is better than Chase, but how much better? Right this year he's played better, but how much better is he right now than Chase? I think Higgins is a little bit better than Odell Beckham is, and I give the edge to Tyler Boyd over Van Jefferson. So in the end, I'm going to go with the Bengals. As a group, I think they're the better group.
All right, Pete, let's get into the trenches then. The Bengals offensive line has been a bit maligned this offseason. We've talked about the sacks that they've given up of Joe Burrow. There might be a chip on that shoulder as they come into the Super Bowl, but this edge has to be on the Rams, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt. The Rams have a big edge on the offensive lines. Look, the Rams are good at tackle. I think left tackle Jonah Williams, a good player for the Bengals. The left guard, Spain, is a pretty good player. But after that, the center, right guard, right tackle, they've struggled. And remember, the right tackle is an injury replacement. You go to the Rams have issues on the interior, though. I think they're better at tackles than they are at the interior. But the overall edge definitely goes to the Los Angeles Rams. The right side of the Bengals line could ultimately be what decides this game. If they can block, they win. If they don't, obviously, Aaron Donald and gang get after Joe Burrow. They won't win the game.
On the other side of that, I mean, when you have Aaron Donald anchoring things, the defensive line comparison, I mean, Pete, this seems like a no-brainer. That's not to discount the Bengals pass rush because it's also been pretty decent, but, I mean, who has the edge here?
Yeah, this is the Rams. I think you look across the board, Aaron Donald, everybody knows what he can do. He's the best defensive player in the league. Von Miller's been capable of putting up big sack numbers. He had a great postseason after playing middling football since he came over to the Rams. Floyd can get after the quarterback. The guy who doesn't get any due is Greg Gaines. He's a force in there, and Robinson's played well in the postseason. On the other side, you look at the Bengals defense. Look, Trey Hendrickson's been everything they hoped he would be. Sam Hubbard's a good player. DJ Reader's a good player. It's close, but in the end, Aaron Donald takes this over the top. It's definitely the Rams.
What about the linebackers, Pete? I mean, when you look at those two sets.
Yeah, it's not good for either team, I'll be honest with you. I think that's the weak spot on both defenses. You look at the Rams and the way they play with those two inside linebackers. Now, if you count Von Miller and Floyd as linebackers, which I don't, I count them as edge players, then you give them an edge. But the two guys on the field, whoever it is, and Reader's been on the field a lot, he struggles in coverage. The flip side is Logan Wilson was off to a Pro Bowl start for the Bengals, got banged up a little bit, had COVID, hadn't played the same. It's turned it up a little bit in the postseason, so slight edge to the Bengals. I don't love either group.
Pete Prisco talking head-to-head matchups ahead of Super Bowl 56 with us here on CBS Sports HQ. Jalen Ramsey, of course, the name to know in the Rams secondary. They added Eric Weddle for the playoff run, and he's been great. But, Pete, you really like Mike Hilton. You leaning Bengals here?
I am leaning Bengals, and Jalen Ramsey is the best defensive back in the game. There's no question about that. But I think the group in Cincinnati is better. Jesse Bates came into the season. Everybody expected him to have an all-pro season. Struggled early on, admitted he had some issues with his contract, got into his head. But down the stretch, he was phenomenal in the playoffs. He's been great. He's going to cash in next year. Chidobe Awuzie, who they signed as an unrestricted free agent, has been outstanding as a man cover guy. Mike Hilton, you mentioned, he's also an unrestricted free agent, great slot corner. I think as a group, they're the better unit. Jalen Ramsey's the best player, but as a group, the Bengals have a better secondary.
And let's talk about the two players that could be the ones to ultimately decide this game. We're talking about the kickers, Matt Gay versus Evan McPherson. You hate them both, Pete. We know how much you hate kickers, but who do you like head-to-head?
The problem with kickers is when they don't make it, I hate them. When you make your kick, which is your job, you're supposed to make your kick, make all your damn kicks, then I like you because that's what you're supposed to do. I'm going to go with McPherson. I think he's one of those guys in this postseason with the Bengals that's got himself on a little bit of a confidence run. We've seen it all throughout the postseason. He's got the big leg. He's making all the kicks. He's making the pressure kicks. And he's one of those guys for the next 4 or 5 years because this is what happens, Jeremy. The kickers all get great, and then they go off the ledge. For the next 4 or 5 years, he'll be a darn good kicker, and then after 4 or 5 years, he'll probably go off the ledge too. And
sitting on a graphic with Adam Vinatieri certainly is lofty to have him up there with one of the greats of all time. CBS Sports HQ senior NFL writer Pete Prisco breaking down the head-to-head matchups all over the field ahead of Super Bowl 56. Thanks, Pete. And for more breakdowns of the game in the lead-up and aftermath, be sure to check out Will Brinson, Ryan Wilson, John Breach, the Pick Six podcast. The fellas doing a fantastic job all week long in LA. They'll be all over the analysis after this game is over.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.